and welcome to the Mysidian Legend podcast. My name is Alex Scott, and I am joined each week by David. Say hello, David.
We back, baby!
That actually came through really clearly, so that's neat. I guess the fans can enjoy that.
Jason Aldean, they're all going to enjoy that.
So if it's your first time listening, each week we cover our locals' experience, including our deck lists and how we can improve in the future. And if we have extra time, or maybe we didn't make it out to locals, then we highlight different cards or decks that we are working with. So we did go to locals this week, and we are coming back after a bit of a hiatus. So I actually had, I went to go upload the deck lists onto my Mysidia post FF Decks account, and I saw episode 15 deck lists, and they're actually that was from what, 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Yeah, a long time ago.
And they're actually the same lists that we ended up playing this week, and that wasn't planned. Except mine had a few adjustments, but the episode 15 that we had queued up but not made was going to be the exact same the deck lists. So that's funny.
Which honestly, I'm pretty okay with, because the first run through with this deck, I didn't do so hot, and this week I got much better results, so I'd rather talk about that.
Yeah, big time. And I also had a much better time than my first run through with the list. And I guess we can... Your deck list is the same. Mine changed 2 cards. But anyway, before we get started, I'm going to just mention the deal that we have for everybody. If you shop at Cards of Ivalice for your singles, you can use the promo code PORUMPALUM10 for your purchase. And when you do that, it shows that you support us at the Mysidia Post, and it gets you a discount on your order. So that's PORUMPALUM10 at cardsofivalice.com. And they also have a bunch of Universus, or the Ultimate Fighting, or whatever it's called, Universal Fighting System. So they just picked up a new TCG. It's pretty cool. You can check that out there too, and the promo code also works for those cards. So, if you play multiple TCGs, here you go.
Is your recent venture into UFS have anything to do with this?
I have not actually ventured in. I have 2 booster packs that I got at Reunion, and I was considering buying some Yu Yu Hakusho booster boxes, and I ended up not doing it because there's no one to play with in Vancouver. Our scene doesn't exist anymore. The Magic Stronghold stopped supporting the game, so they don't order a new product anymore. They're just trying to sell out of what they have. So I just thought,
really? Wow.
Yeah, so I figured whenever I went to FFTCG events, I'd be able to play, because there's a bunch of people that play in FFTCG now, but not worth the investment yet. I do really, really like Yu Yu Hakusho though, so it's appealing.
Yeah, getting to play a random anime deck versus another Star Wars waifu deck, all right. Sounds like a good time to me.
Yeah, and the game does seem really interesting. The just totally different than any other TCG. It's not like FFTCG. That's very similar to Magic, and you can just come over. It's you'll have to learn how to play that one, because it's got its own, entirely own mechanics, and yeah.
And I'm sure that's an episode for another podcast.
Yeah, but not this podcast, because this is an FFTCG podcast, and we're going to talk about our deck lists for the week, so let's get into it. Okay, so let's start off with your list, David. What were you playing this week?
All right, boys. So I'm going to give you one guess. It's a return to form for me. I'm back home with my Firewater FF9 decks. I think I played an FF9 deck on probably episode 14 or 13 or whatever, and didn't do so hot, but I was ready to... So I kind of deconstructed that, got back to my roots. So we're talking 1-drop VV, deal 7k. If you have 4 or more FF9 characters, that includes himself. 2-drop Zidane, 3 of those. The Layla Viking kind of thing. Steiner, Cloud of Darkness, obviously. But the thing that really makes this deck is the Gilgamesh 11 that we got in Opus 10. If you control 5 or more water characters, Gilgamesh cannot be broken by opposing summons or abilities that don't deal damage. So Diabolos, you can go suck it. When Gilgamesh attacks, choose one forward to cost 2 in your break zone, play it to the field. So now you pair that with the 1-drop Goblin that grants haste, and draw a card after that, and Verena into the backup row to obviously search for those. And then Gilgamesh swings, brings back Zidane. Gilgamesh swings, brings back Porum, Garnet, Firion, Vivi. And so every time he swings, he's getting you some good stuff. A couple times I've played with this deck, and I've swung with Gilgamesh, brought back a Zidane, and then they just keep killing that Zidane, and they just completely ignore everything else on my field. So it's just like you're just bringing back this lightning rod, and if you just keep ignoring Gilgamesh, he's just going to keep doing his stuff. So that's pretty much all of the forwards I got. We'll get to the numbers eventually. I'm sure it's on the screen, or you post these deck lists like
I put them
comments,
in
right?
They're in the descriptions for the video and the audio. So yeah,
perfect. So yeah, you guys can see this. For summons, I got Famfrit and 7 cost Phoenix, 2 monsters, obviously the 1-drop Goblin, and then the backups are what you'd expect. The haste giving Sage, 3 of those because turn 1's it on. It's kind of a meme around here that's what I do. Artemistian, Black Waltz, Ico, Mog, Brawn to get those FF9s, and Class 4th Moogle, Verena for some support. And yeah, that's that deck.
You know what's kind of interesting is you've got 19 EX bursts.
Heck yeah, I have 19 EX bursts. I love EX bursts.
Is that is that the most you've ever had in this deck?
Nowhere close, because remember, I'm not even running things like Fairy.
Right, you used to run Fairy. Okay, so it's just like generally a high EX burst count anyway. And
if we're gonna play the RNG game, then why not tilt that in your favor, right? And that's why I kind of chose to have 7-drop Amaranth instead of something like maybe Cloud or Nail, because honestly, I'm probably not going to play Amaranth out of my hand unless I'm overflowing with cards, which happens, which really happens with this deck. So he has a little more versatility with it's 7k no matter what, and with how fast this deck goes, for Cloud to be effective, you're probably thinking like, oh, I got to get to 4 or 5 damage. Well, this is just 7k no matter what. If I do take a hit, or if I play him on 3 backups pretty early, or break a monster. If I'm pissed off at a Scale Toad or a Death Gaze, out comes Amaranth, breaks that.
Yeah, so I guess I like that it powers up the VV too. One of the cool things about this list is you have 2 of the 1 CP Goblin, and you have 2 of the Verena to search it. That's EX burst, and then 3 Sage. So I guess just more ways to haste Zidane than there's ever been before.
Well, I mean, look at the things that I want to give haste to. Zidane is one of them. Gilgamesh is another one. So those are your 2 primary hasters, right? But also think about Clouded Darkness if you can pull that off, right? So you drop Clouded Darkness, and maybe you just have a Layla and Viking off. Okay, that's 6k. Swings, that's another 7k, and that can take out a good amount of things.
It's also just like a good thing for your opponent to see, because even if it just makes them, if they're on 6 damage, they always know that you, like, oh, I saw he had a Goblin, I see he has 1 Sage out right now, like, at any given point, he can finish this game off, so I have to play a certain way, which is very, very hard for your opponent.
Like, I was playing a warm-up game, and this was after locals. I think you had left at this point, and everyone was watching me and our good friend Yuta play. He got me down to I had no cards left in my deck, so this was the last turn. Either I win it here or I don't. And damage is at he's at 6, I'm at 3 or something, 3 or 4. And everyone's like, I don't know why everyone was really hyping this game up, and they were like, oh, Yuta, you got him. And then I drop a Citra, get back a Goblin, give haste, and I'm able to just swing with a Cloud of Darkness and swing out and just get over it. So it's, for a 1-drop monster, it can turn the game.
Now, that's a very interesting interaction that some people might not think about, but Citra does bring back monsters into your hand, because you see people generally use it exclusively for summons, and I know I've used it a lot with Kanakamoi, the lightning monster, because it's so good at bringing, that's just more removal. But in this deck, it's Citra must be incredibly important for you.
Yeah, it's pretty clutch because whether I'm bringing back a goblin or I'm bringing back a Famfrit, because out of the support cards like that, there's only 8, right? There's the 3 Famfrits, the 3 Phoenixes, and then the 2 goblins. So being able to just cast Famfrit over and over again to kill Vikings, to kill Porums, etc., etc. It's clutch. Like it'll win me games, and it has so far.
It's gonna win you games and it's gonna make you some enemies because Julian doesn't like you playing Layla Viking.
Okay, I think he's moved on from Layla Viking though, because every time he sees the Dawn, that's his new trigger.
Yeah,
He
you're
gets all
playing
uppity when he
Zon.
sees.
Yeah.
Oh, what? I gotta get rid of that thing.
Well, you know what he should have had. He was playing Lightning this week, so he probably had a bunch of ways to do it.
Um, Foreshadowing. We'll get to that later.
Okay, awesome. So we'll talk about my deck list now. So this is a Mono Earth deck list, and it's pretty basic. All you can just take the look at the list. The main things that we have going on here is there's a lot of ways to like recur, draw, and search cards. So things like Suzuhisa, Luminous Puma, and then like your whole recursion package with the Puru, Minfilia, Miner, Gabranth, Epitaph, and Regis all search, and Sid Garland is kind of like revealing cards, and so there's lots of ways for Earth to ramp and to search, which is good. You know, stuff that Earth hasn't had traditionally. And then I've got the 7 CP Tama, which you might think is one of my homer picks, but it's not. It's one of my favorite cards, and I've written an article about how good I think it can be. And I used I played it in 2 matches, and both those matches I used its action ability to bring something back as well. Generally, it's another way to bring back like a Raubon to close out a game, or play something even better, like keep playing your 5 CP Delita over and over. So that was a really good card today. This deck also has a lot of removal, but it's all pretty expensive. So there's Yojimbo and Titan, and I'm just kind of playing the EX Burst game. I'm not really sure how I'm feeling about it. I kind of want to go back to 2 CP Heka, but that's for later on. I've got Asmodai and Cecil, and then Rabon and Vincent. And then otherwise, just kind of, this is the Gladio Noctis combo, so 2 CP Gladio when you have Noctis out. I don't think I've ever used Noctis's ETB on anything ever. And I've got a couple of homer cards too. So the first one is 7 CP Gabranth, and that's just fun. Not much to say about that. And the Bosch, I have 2 Bosches. So that's our new card. That's our new Earth hero from last set. And he has a lot of different things. And the reason he's in this deck is because of you, David.
Absolutely. So that is my homer pick into your deck. I think that he is very underrated, but heck, you've gotten more experience playing with him than I do.
Yeah, and you know what? The one matchup you might think like, oh, well, he's going to suck against discard. Well, I played that matchup today, and he was a big part of it. So we'll kind of chat about what happened with him there in a little bit. So if you're ready, we can get on to the matches.
Let's move on.
Okay, so we were at Magic Stronghold in Vancouver, Canada this week, and there was only 6 of us, so it was a small week, and we played 3 rounds. Although I did actually play a bonus round at the end that I'm going to talk about, just because it was one of the other 2-in-1 players. So we played our tournament deck. So, but let's get started with round 1. What were you playing?
I played against a mono lightning deck, Julian, in fact. So, as we built up to here. So basically, what happened was, the one thing that Mono Lightning has that just completely wrecks me is the Black Mage comes in and lowers power by 4K. So if I get that turn 1's it on, usually it's, that's painful. Like, it hurts. So then I knew that was probably going to be the case. So I played around it. So my opening turn, I had the means of which to turn 1's it on haste, but I didn't do it. I played like a Artemis, or a class something Moogle, whatever. And then his turn one, he plays a 2-drop backup, and then he kind of mulls it over, and then plays the black mage for no value. So at that point, I was like, okay, either he doesn't have one in his hand, and I just got lucky here, or he's got another one. But either way, I can probably swing in safely. So in my next turn, Zidane swung in, and then he was just trying to play catch up, basically trying to get rid of that Zidane. And every time he did, Gilgamesh was bringing him back. So eventually, I was just able to kind of outvalue him, outrace him. He wasn't really able. And Julian's the kind of guy who loves to get to plays a little bit more conservative, loves to get to his 5 backups, kind of play the value game there. He's a great player, absolutely. But in this case, I was just able to kind of outrace him and outvalue him and get 7 damage.
Yeah, that must have felt good to win against like a matchup that you're not necessarily favored in. Like I know that I've personally played all the 2CP black mages on your Zidane in the world.
Yes, and you know how much it bothers me, but honestly, maybe those games were what were teaching me for this moment to try and play around it.
Yeah, and did you end up getting to play him again later on or anything, or?
No, unfortunately not so much.
Okay, well, you know what?
Oh, well, I did play him, I did play him in between the 2 rounds, and I'm pretty sure, Julian will correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure I won the second one too, but it was a much tighter game.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so for my first round, I was playing against, well, maybe it's not Julian, but it sure was his deck. It's the Rydia deck. Except I'm not giving Yuta enough credit because Yuta took Julian's deck and he put a very unique spin on it. It's a Rydia Summoners list. So that's playing our 3CP water backup Braska, which reduces the cost of your summoners by 1. So this reduced the cost of Rydia to 4. It reduces the cost of the 2CP Light Yuna to 1. And then the deck runs Citra and this 2CP Yuna. And the 2CP Yuna can remove cards, summons from your break zone to go back to your hand. And then you can just keep pitching it with Citra's effect to make your opponent not block or not attack. And then you can just kind of stall and set up. And if not, you can like swing through and win. And it's just like an infinite combo. And it's so much cheaper because of Braska. So what I needed to not let him do is set up. But what I let him do is set up. So he had he had 5 backups and a bunch of Raidens, Fusuyas, Bahamats, Phoenixes, just all the big removal. And at that point, I'm a mono earth player. I'm playing big forwards to try to boss around the game, and he's doesn't really care because his removal can take out literally anything I do, and then he's fine. He used that Citra Yuna combo a bunch to stop me from getting early damage, and then he ended up just swarming the board and casted multiple Raidens and just took over and ended up beating me pretty handily.
Yeah, that deck's going to be really scary because what he's playing right now is basically a precursor for what his Opus 11 deck will be when we get the new Yuna, the Wind Yuna, and Unaleska. And I was really gelling to make a light Yuna deck, and I had just gotten the cards for it, so that's definitely a inspiration. It's a scary deck. I played it later in the day, so I'll get to that. But yeah, with all the different ways that it can remove your cards, it's scary. Like it's got firepower.
Yeah, it's definitely not a great matchup for me, but I want to give him a lot of credit because that's not an easy deck to play, and you have to play a lot of slow cards to get going at first. And he was saying like, oh, this is Julian's list, but you know what? It really isn't, because the Rydia package might be there, but Julian's playing a mono earth list with a dark package, and this is an earth water with light cards. Like it's got the Rydia synergies, and then it has a whole lot of unique stuff. So big props to Yuta for building that deck.
No, for sure. It's kind of interesting how your deck and his deck contrast in playstyle, because your forwards are big and beefy and scary, whilst his summons are the big and scary and not his forwards. So
Yeah, well, he was beating me down with a Gabranth and a Rydia. Those are a 4,000 power forward and a 5,000 power forward. Like that's those usually aren't getting through against me.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, yeah, you play the Fasoyas and you play the Raidens especially, and yeah, there goes Gladio. Like what can Gladio do?
Yeah,
There goes your Arden too, because it doesn't hit break him. It just removes him from the game.
My Arden with the Raiden, the second Raiden
Yeah, exactly.
of the day. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's get into the round 2.
All right, let's move into round 2.
Yeah, we played each other.
And you take this one. I don't want to talk about it.
It was classic Alex versus David. David bricked. He had two backups and couldn't get off 2 backups until it was too late. He had an early Zidane play that if it stuck, that could have been the TSN turning point, but instead I hit it with a Yojimbo. And that was kind of an interesting turn because I had 2 forwards. Your Zidane's unblockable. I hit it with the Yojimbo, and you could have cast a Phoenix to kill my forward and then make the Yojimbo not go through. But then Zidane had already attacked and it wasn't blocked declaration yet, so he would have been blocked. And do you think you still would have... So you didn't end up casting the Phoenix. Do you think you would in the future, or do you think that was the right call?
I think it was the right call because regardless, I'm losing my Zidane. And then I'm just playing a Phoenix to kind of try and overcorrect that. Like, okay, maybe we're trading 1 for 1. Oh, no, that's a really tough play because then at least I would get a forward back out of it.
I would lose a forward. You would still have a forward.
Yeah.
It's a tricky one. I didn't know what was the right answer. I would have been happy with either because my plan I just wanted that Zidane out of there. But so I actually took a little while to think about that play because I'm like, well, because I knew you had the Phoenix, so I just thought like it took me so long to figure out whether or not what you would do, and yeah, that's a tough one.
Yeah, I think I just decided it just wasn't worth it, but fucking who knows what was right or wrong at this point.
Yeah, so then you actually came back into the game and were developing your board, and you had backups again. You got your backups out, and then you went for a big Gilgamesh 11 Goblin turn, and that again would have been a very significant turn for you. However, I had been holding on to a Mist Dragon, waiting for some of your recursion BS. So I Mist Dragoned on a Gilgamesh swing, and then I was able to Rab on that Gilgamesh the next turn and just kind of close out the match from there.
Yeah, that was kind of the thing, is that once I did finally get things going my way, you always had... I mean, you know my deck so well. It's one of those things, right? That you know it so well, you know exactly what you need to hold on to. So, yeah, Zidane comes down. So here's your Jimbo. Here's Gilgamesh. Well, yeet, there goes your break zone. So every kind of big tempo swings that, as you said, could have been TSN turning points, you had exactly the answer to shut it down. So
and that's the disadvantage of playing your friends all the time. But
that's the disadvantage.
I also had stuff that kills Gilgamesh, whereas he's often protected against a lot of removal with his abilities. But my deck just happened to have a few ways to kill a protected Gilgamesh. So yeah, good for me.
Right? Yeah, great for you. We also got into the late game, which we talked about too. That your deck is much more built for the late game, and then if I can't win in probably the first 15 turns, then I'm not gonna win.
Oh yeah. Once I get set up and I can start doing some recursion and just turn the bad cards into my hand into good cards for my break zone, and then I'm in good shape.
Exactly.
Oh yeah.
All right, okay. Round 3.
Round 3. You want to go first?
Round 3, I played the Summoner deck that you had lost against, and I had won. So how's that for parity?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It made everyone that was in the top cut for prizing, we all beat a different person. So it was exactly. Just how do you decide who came first?
Oh, you let the computer decide. You push a button.
Yeah. Okay, get into it.
Not not much I can really say about this match. Um, yeah, just his. I was always able to remove anything he put on the board, and the value that he was generating was just not the same as mine. So sure, maybe he got the Fasoya down and was able to kill Zidane, but I mean that's using a Fasoya on a Zidane, right? Because like I don't mind so many of my things dying unless it's Clouded Darkness or Gilgamesh, really. But once Gilgamesh is protected, I mean that's damage. But the only time that he was able to get rid of the Gilgamesh was when he would cast a Raiden. And well, lucky me, when I got tempoed early. I tempoed out early and was able to get quick damages, and 2 of the first 3 damage were the Raidens. So the things that were screwing you were not screwing me. Things like, and then his forwards are really small, so things like Black Waltz, Fury, and Vivi were just always able to clip him down. So I would have no problem with playing a 7-drop Phoenix, let's say, into a Vivi or a Furion, because then it just kind of it blows up 2 things all of a sudden.
Yeah, you can go 2 for 1 pretty easily.
And then, yeah, I pretty much tempoed up, went hard, Layla Vikings into Clouded Darkness, and just swung, and he just didn't have the firepower to stop me at that point. And yeah, I took the game. 2-1.
Nice.
2-1.
Congratulations. You know what my first is actually, I didn't mention this, but when I played against Yuta in round 1, do you know what my first damage against him was?
What was that?
7 CP Odin. So that actually that's a big part of like why I couldn't why he got to set up is that it was like the Odin and then the Citra and then not attacking ability and stuff. So but anyway, so you're 2-1, and then I've got a win to come to be 2-1 as well, which I did. I played against Mono Ice that had a lot of discard. I very quickly ramped up to 4 backups because what I like to do against Mono Ice is play with a low hand size and make them have Sid Alstein. If they don't have Sid Alstein, then their discard just sucks. They're playing forwards that don't do anything when they enter and they're underpowered, and I'm just laughing. So I played lots of forwards. My 4th backup was the 7 CP Tama, and that happened twice today, and it's a really good 4th backup because you pitch 2 cards. So both times I pitched a card in Bosch and played the Tama to play back the Bosch onto the field. So it's like I pitched 2 cards to play this 4 CP forward, and that Tama was just a 0 CP backup that has an action ability. So you're already getting a little bit of efficiency there. And if you play a 5 CP, obviously that's even better. But it's just like a really, really solid play when you're able to do it. Even if you have to do it off of 3 discard, like it's still a solid play. So the Bosch was actually pretty good. So the first ability in Bosch is when you enter your attack phase, if you have 2 cards in hand, he gets Brave, which you always have because you draw 2 cards in this game. So having Brave against Ice is actually really solid. And because of that, I was able to put lots of pressure. I just kept slapping forwards down onto the table, and he just didn't have enough Dull Freeze to deal with it. I was able to deal with his Azure Dragon, and at the end, when he flooded the board, and he had a snow backup, so I had to do something. I Tama'd in my Raubon to force lethal that turn. And then the MVP of the match was Gigas, the 4 CP monster backup that is just like a blocker, and it's amazing against the snow backup because they can't choose it for snow, and then they swing in and you activate him as a forward and he blocks, and that's very hard for Ice to deal with.
Yeah, he's a big shield because then they have to be kind of anticipating it, and then when you activate him, like after you activate him, then they have to Glacia him maybe, but then that's just playing 3 CP to dull and freeze something. So that's not.
Which is what he did, and yeah, I'm happy to do that. So it was good. If I don't know what I would have done if I hadn't, because he played like a Garland at one point, the Ice Garland, and I already had 4 backups, so I'm just like, sure, I'll just dull it back up, because if you're at 3, you're fine. You can play everything. So
Yeah, exactly.
worked out. So we were all
Congratulations, 2-1.
oh yeah 2-1. So we're all 2-1. We had, I believe, Yuta came first in tiebreakers. You were second. I was third, and then Brandon was also 2-1 and fourth with his Warriors of Darkness Earth Lightning deck. So right after the tournament ended, we had a match with our tournament decks, and this is the bonus round. So it was a super fun match. I was able to keep up with his. He had a really fast Rampier start, Rampier into Garland. I used Gabranth to search Asmodai and remove that Garland. The game came to a stalemate, but my opponent made a mistake. He attacked with another Garland because he had Garland Rampiered twice that game. So he's thinking, I got 9k first strike, you've got 9k Cecil. He attacks, I block, I had Sieghard. Sieghard reduces the damage taken by 1,000 for your Earthfords. So Garland does 8,000 to Cecil and he dies, and that was obviously a huge moment for me. The game still came down to the bottom of our decks. My opponent played Diana to bring back an Alba, and that would force lethal. And I had been hanging on to an extra Gladio in my hand, so he goes into combat, and I Gladio, on the stack, when he tries to dull my Gladio with Alba on the ETB, I Gladio special to do 7k damage to all his forwards. It kills his Warriors of Darkness, and then Sieghard is able to block his bigger forwards and survive because he takes 2k less. So he also should have dulled my Sieghard, but in the end it was kind of a fun finish.
So you kind of went 3-1.
Yeah, in a way. That's why I wanted to talk about it, just because I was so happy with how the deck performed. After my first match with Yuta, I actually, it was such a shellacking. I said to him, this is like when you play like a TCG, like a digital one, and this, I have a starter deck, and then I go into the ranked ladder, and you play with your starter deck, and you're like, oh, what are all these cards? And you get crushed by people playing meta decks, because I was playing all this these basic forwards that just attack, and all these cards that don't have that much text, and he was playing this crazy deck. So I was feeling kind of oh, well, Mono Earth is probably not going to work out, and then I ended up winning 3 matches, so I'm feeling good.
Yeah, especially after you had a really busy, stressful week, so you come back to kind of your home, play Mono Earth, your favorite deck, and then to find success with it. I think you needed that.
Yeah, I know.
Feels good, man.
It does, yeah, feels good. We both had good weeks. So let's quickly talk about if we're going to make any changes for these decks in the future. So for your list, let's take a look at it real quick. Is there anything that you think, oh, I got to take this out, I got to swap it?
So I'm pretty happy with the way that it has been running. But there are a couple of things I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about dropping the 7 CP Phoenix to 2 and upping the Goblin count to 3. Because let's get hasty, boys. Backups, I'm at 17. It's a number that I'm not sure if I need it to be that high, because none of the backups break themselves except for Mog, which is a which
it's
is
not
only a
something
1-up.
you use that much.
And when I do, I use it once a game, maybe, to just go for lethal. So I'm wondering if I can reduce that down to 16 by cutting maybe a class 4th Moogle. It never really helped me all that much to have the CP fixing, and it honestly ended up hurting me more than helping me because of it not being a 9 character, or maybe cutting the Verena to 1. Something, because I want to leave the 9 backups the same because they need to be there for Vivi. So either the class 4th or the Verena I would think about cutting. Especially if I up the Goblin to 3, then maybe I don't need to have 2 searchers for it.
Yeah, you could just have 1. And one, speaking of no breaking backups, the card that I always really enjoyed in your list was that the Titus that bounces back up to your hand. And have you thought about trying that again, even as a 1-of?
Yeah, I've thought about it, and because I really love those combos of bouncing a VV and bouncing a Sage, and then giving playing the VV again to remove, and then giving the Titus haste. But there's nothing that I would really want to cut. Like looking over the list, because everything fits so well. Because everything that's under 3 cost, like I need it for Gilgamesh, and everything over 3 cost, like I need the Vikings for the Laylas, and I need those for Cloud of Darkness to be relevant.
That could always be like you cut a Phoenix and put in a Titus, or you cut a Verena and put in a Titus.
Well, maybe, yeah.
Yeah. Or cut one of each and then put in a Goblin and a Titus.
Yeah, I mean, sure, let's do it. One card that's been kind of underwhelming me, actually, that is kind of hurting me to say this, is 5 CP Steiner.
Oh my goodness.
I know, and it hurts me to say this. Because usually, like, you've played against me thousands of times. How many times has Steiner been a turn to play where I tap 1 and pitch 2?
Yeah,
and just ramp out.
It's important, but then it's kind of slow sometimes, and it's not strong either. So it's only
that's the thing. It just doesn't do anything. It gets me a backup. Yay! I draw enough that I end up getting them.
It can find your Zidane, which is nice, but like at the end of the day, would you put in a different Steiner?
I do love the 3 CP that we got in Opus 8.
Yeah,
so
I
would think, yeah, right. So I think about rolling that one, especially when I keep bringing in Zidanes and Garnets and VVs and stuff to just keep reactivating him with Gilgamesh.
And he reactivates off the Phoenix too.
Yeah, exactly. So he's a really good Phoenix target.
That would be neat. I bet he could protect your Zidane sometimes. It's just like it's not something you count on. It's just something that happens.
Yeah, exactly. And then that totally screws with your opponent. Like they cast the Veil for thinking that they got you, and then tap. And then if I were to switch to the 3 CP Steiner, then I would definitely up that Goblin count. Because imagine bringing him in, cracking a Goblin to give him haste, making him block, dull him to become an 8k, and then reduce damage by 1k.
Yeah.
Can you say tempo swing?
Yeah. Well, I don't know who's gonna block it. Everyone's gonna be afraid of his abilities. All right.
Yeah. But then this keeps them at bay, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Well, he is a troublesome card. Like if you haven't played against that Steiner, you got to think about it because he's capable of a lot. For sure.
That'll be something that I think about moving forward. But yes, let's move on to your list. What do you have for your dirt deck?
Yeah, this dirty earth deck. Well, I don't know. The changes I made from the last time I played it's fine. I upped my Gigas to 2 for this week, as well as my Zuzuhisa to 2, and both cards performed very well. Zuzuhisa has been absolutely excellent so far. And otherwise, I'm not really sure. Like I'm not viewing this deck like it's a competitive list that I need to refine. It's just I'm looking at it like, hey, this is my favorite deck and it's fun. So, and that's why there's cards like otherwise, the 7 CP Garanth has to take a hike, and I'm not willing to do that. Or like, to be honest with you, Bosch, I was close to getting his 7 CP ability, and then he got removed a couple of times. C cards performed really well. I mean, overall, I don't think I would change that much. I just keep playing this list and have fun. The one thing I might look into is honestly cutting 2 to 3 Yojimbos for 2 CP Hekkas, because 2 CP Hekka, I felt like there was lots of times where I had Yojimbo and Titan in hand, and interacting with my opponent's play on the stack would cost my whole hand, and that doesn't feel good.
No, absolutely. It's not just removal. It's expensive removal, and you need to have a forward out as well. Yeah,
so I think the 3 Titans are better, and that I maybe even just go 3 Yojimbos out and 3 Hekkas in.
Sure. Yeah.
and just kind of, I could mess around with it too. I could try some other stuff out. I want to try that one CP Titan out more. Maybe I go 2 Hekkas and a Titan or a Kusith or something like that.
Hey, it's your favorite deck. Go for it, man. You understand this better than I. I do think it's interesting that this deck is obviously mono Earth. There's only 2 non-Earth cards with the 2 Galdes. And it plays very much like a Earth Water, and that's something you always said you wanted Earth to be more of a value deck. And I think you're kind of hitting it on the head, especially if you are making Bosch work.
Yeah, exactly. I think ultimately, I think Earth Water with Zidane and Bosch is how you're gonna make it happen. But I think you're gonna try that, right?
I do have one made up or the blueprints of one made up that I showed you. What do you think about it?
I think that you were gonna have to do some testing, and that we'll cover it on the next episode.
Whoa.
Okay, so with that, we're gonna wrap up for the week. We addressed that we had taken a little bit of a break, but I just want to mention that I just got very busy for a little while. I'm a wrestling coach, and we had our provincial championships recently. So if you're not Canadian, our provinces are like your states in America. So this is like a state championship, but it's a provincial championship. So the season got really busy. We were practicing 5 days a week, and I was doing a lot of work at night after practice, and it all piled up, and it was really hard. So that season's ended, and I'm ready to go again. I'm going to start making more content again. So just thank you to anyone that's listening that was patient, and sorry for the inconsistency.
And don't worry, boys and girls, we back in the saddle. So we're gonna get back to making this content that you all so very much love.
Yeah, they do.
And we certainly missed y'all too. So
yeah,
we're gonna get back at it.
Yeah, so please comment and talk with us. We love getting comments and interacting with the listeners. So that's gonna be it for this week of the Massidian Legend. Don't forget, we have the promo code PORUMPALUM10 at cardsevilise.com to get a discount. And normally I'd plug all my other, like my website and stuff, but there's nothing on there that's new. So there will be soon. But for now,
no, don't worry about it.
Yeah, and then what's the last thing that we always do?
We say goodbye to them.
We thank FF Decks.
We thank FF Decks for all of your hard work. It is the greatest website ever. I spend countless amounts of time on it. I have an 1.5-hour commute to work there and back every day, and most of that time is spent on our fast train, our SkyTrain, looking at it, trying to get ideas and seeing what's up. FF Decks, you're the best website ever.
Yeah. All right, we'll say goodbye, David.
Sayonara, everybody. See y'all next week.
Thanks for listening, Massidians. See you next time.